Hi everyone, and welcome to Gwyn Collects. Alright, so for today's video, I'm going to be talking a little bit about the different figure manufacturers. So when I first got into figure collecting back in September, I really had no idea how figure manufacturers worked, or which ones were good, or which ones were bad, or what a fair price was to pay for figures. And I think I made a few poor choices with my figure buying back when I first started. So I thought I would make this video as kind of a guide for new collectors, and also sharing my experience with the different figure manufacturers so that when you're all pre-ordering your figures, you kind of know what to look for and what to expect. So this is going to be a fairly long video, I think, so I'm gonna jump in as quickly as possible. Alright, so I have my notes right here. I tried to make this video as succinct as possible because I know I like to ramble on. So I have my notes here about the different manufacturers that I have experience with, for the most part. A few of the ones I included on here, I either only have like one figure from them, or I don't have any, but I've heard about them before. So hopefully I'll cover most of the like big figure manufacturers in this video. I know there's lots that will be left out, but hopefully at least these will help you out with some of the bigger manufacturers. Alright, so we're gonna start with one of my favorite companies, Kotobukiya. Okay, so I have quite a few pros for Kotobukiya. I like them quite a bit. My first pro is that they make male figures. As a female figure collector, I know I'm in the minority, but I do like my male figures just as much as I like female figures. So it's always nice to see a company that will actually sometimes make male figures instead of just only making female figures. So Kotobukiya definitely gets a plus there. Another thing I really like about Kotobukiya is often when they'll make a character from a series, they'll make multiple characters from the series. So for instance, I'm collecting the Fire Force characters. They've already come out with Shinra and Tamaki, and Arthur and Benny are up for pre-order right now. And it's really nice to just know, like, if you buy one figure from a series, that you're going to be able to collect a set, and they'll all have matching bases and matching scales, and they'll all look really nice together on the shelf. I also think Kotobukiya gets a plus for their really good prices. Often the Kotobukiya figures will be on the lower end of pricing, and I really appreciate that. They're not always super affordable, but often the figures will be more reasonable than you'd expect. It's really nice to see a figure company put out good quality figures for a fair price. Another thing I really appreciate about Kotobukiya is they make everything from 1/8 scales to 1/6 scales, and often their 1/6 scales are really great prices. For instance, my Taiga that I have, you can probably see her legs right there. She's a 1/6, and I think she retailed for 7,800 yen when she came out. Another thing I really appreciate is that they have a US site, so for Americans and Canadians, it's really nice to be able to order from America. They also often do re-releases. I'm very excited to say that I have pre-ordered my Grails, Aaron and Mikasa, that I talked about in my Grail video. I'll link it above. And I'm just really excited that they're doing a re-release of those figures, because I didn't expect them to, and it's super, super exciting that I'll be able to get them now. So props to Kotobukiya for doing re-releases. Finally, I have two more points. They have some of the best figure bases out there. Like, all of my Kotobukiya figures have had fantastic bases, and most of the ones I see up for pre-order also have really, really nice looking bases, and that is very appreciated, seeing as a huge part of figure purchasing for me is whether or not the figure has a nice base. Finally, this is a pro, but can also kind of be spun as a con. The pro is that the bonus parts that they send with the first prints of their figures are usually super cool. But, I guess I'll start the con list here. Sometimes I find that those bonus parts almost are necessary to complete the figure. An example of this is my Tamaki that I have. I feel like her bonus parts should have come stock with the character. Continuing on with some of the cons for Kotobukiya, the figure quality isn't always quite there. It's not always perfect, and I think for the more affordable prices, Kotobukiya has a little bit more leeway, but I've heard some people not being very happy with their Kotobukiya purchases. Another thing is sometimes I find their faces just look really weird. And I know for a lot of people, myself included, a face can really make or break a figure. So sometimes Kotobukiya they try, but they miss. I think a good example of that is the new Yuji figure from Jujutsu Kaisen that they announced. I'm still kind of going back and forward on whether or not I want this figure because I really don't like his stock expression. Alright, so that is all I have to say for Kotobukiya. If you are thinking about buying a Kotobukiya figure, I would say that it's a pretty safe bet to buy one. They usually come out great, and I've been super pleased with every single Kotobukiya figure I own. Alright, so next up I have everyone's favorite, Alter. All of my Alter figures have been amazing quality. These figures are beautiful, and I think that Alter just really nails it with their characters. Their figures always look great, the poses are often awesome, the paint jobs are always immaculate, and the sculpts are always great. I also see a lot of Alter figures on the pre-owned market, and often a lot of those Alter figures are from like even up to 10 years ago, and they're still selling for pretty high prices, I would say, for being 10-year-old figures. So I think Alter figures really hold up and stand the test of time. So Alter, for the most part, I think has very fair prices. Their prices have been going up recently, but again, like my Saber dress version that I pre-ordered, I think was 1,600 yen, and that figure looks fantastic, and I think it's going to be a really nice addition to my collection. And honestly, 1,600 yen for a figure like that, I don't think is a terrible price. Another thing I like about Alter is they often also do re-releases. The Saber Alter dress version that I was just talking about is re-releasing for its like third release now, and it's really nice to see figure companies that realize that people want their figures and then they reproduce more, which is really nice, and I appreciate that for sure. Now for the cons for Alter, I only have a few. I would say first that there aren't a ton of male Alter figures. There's the free figures that I can think of off the top of my head, but there aren't a ton of male figures. And my other gripe is that while Alter remakes some of their figures, some of their other more like obscure figures, like Chitanda from Huoka, they skyrocket in price so much and they never get a re-release. I know they're more like niche characters, so that's probably why, but it is definitely disappointing when a character you love doesn't get a re-release and then the aftermarket price just keeps going up and up, especially because Alter figures hold their value. That price is just going to keep increasing, and it can be a little bit of a tough pill to swallow when you see a figure you want for like $500 when it retailed for under 100. But what are you gonna do? I guess that's the hobby, right? Alright, so on to the next figure manufacturer I'm going to be talking about, and it is Myethos. So a few pros about Myethos is their figures are just insanely beautiful. I don't think anyone can argue that. Often their figures are amazing, the bases are absolutely incredible, and the quality is always top-notch. Additionally, the prices that Myethos charges for their figures I think are so fair for the quality that the figures are. This Judith cost me 200 Canadian dollars, and in my opinion, her sculpt and everything is just so worth 200 Canadian dollars. Like, I think that is a steal for a figure that is this nice, and I've paid more for less nice figures. A few cons for Myethos that are pretty minor, and if you're really into Myethos figures, then these shouldn't really bother you all that much, but one issue I have with Myethos is I find they often make figures for kind of obscure IPs. As someone that likes to know the material that my figures come from, it can be tough to spend money on a figure from a series you don't know, and Myethos mostly makes figures from series that I don't know, often from like mobile games and other Chinese media, which is totally fair since they're a Chinese company, but it is kind of tough when like you want to get your favorite characters and the company doesn't produce them. When they do decide to do Japanese characters, like say the Hatsune Miku that they're coming out with that is insanely gorgeous, they made it a China exclusive. So yeah, that is a little bit frustrating, especially if you're not comfortable using like a proxy or something. The exclusive figures can be a little bit tough. Alright, so I'm going to be talking about Good Smile Company next. And I know Good Smile Company sells a lot of different kind of like manufacturers under Good Smile Company. So I'm going to talk about Good Smile Company as a manufacturer first, and then I'll talk about a few of their like, I don't even know how to describe it, a few of their like partner manufacturers. I don't know exactly how it works, but that's how I think I'll talk about it. So starting with Good Smile Company, First, I think Good Smile Company just makes really good quality figures. This Erina right here is a Good Smile Company figure, and I'm super happy with her. She's beautiful. Honestly, everything about the figure is beautiful, so I'm really happy with the quality of all my Good Smile Company figures. Additionally, Good Smile Company has some really great lines such as their Nendoroids for Nendoroid fans, which I know there are a lot of, and Figmas if you're into kind of like posable figures and stuff. That's always a great choice. They also have a really affordable and really good quality pop-up parade line. So if you're interested in figures, but maybe you're on a tighter budget, I know we can all relate to being on a tighter budget, especially right now. So pop-up parades can be a really good way to get your favorite characters for a much more reasonable price than buying scales, and you don't really have to sacrifice much for quality. Also, in my opinion, their scale prices are really fair, and they're often really well done scales, so that is awesome. And one other thing, just like Kotobukiya, Good Smile Company has a US site. So again, for all the reasons that having a US site for Kotobukiya was a good thing, it's also really nice for Canadians and Americans to be able to ship from Good Smile US. One gripe I have with Good Smile Company, and a lot of the preceding manufacturers that I'm going to talk about, is that they'll often only make one character from a series and then just never make any other ones, which is kind of annoying. Like, I have this beautiful Erina figure, but no other Food Wars characters to go with her. And they barely make male figures, which is another con. So it kind of sucks. My Akari Kawamoto figure, my absolute grail, one of my favorite figures in my collection, I highly doubt I'm ever gonna get a matching Hina or any of the other amazing characters from March Comes In Like a Lion, because it's not very popular, and that figure was kind of just a random character that they made. My other issue with Good Smile Company, and it occurs with a couple other companies too, but I have a pet peeve of when they put figures up for pre-order more than a year in advance. I really don't understand that. Honestly, why would I pre-order figures that are coming out at the end of 2022? To me, it just doesn't make sense, and I find it weird for them to ask you to commit to a figure so far in advance. Continuing on to Chara-Ani, or Chara-Ani, I still don't know how to say it. I love the figures that Chara-Ani makes characters for. They always look beautiful, and often they're characters that I love, like the Taiga wedding version that's coming out, the holo that I have. They're making a really cool looking Megumin that they just announced. Just a lot of really cool figures. I really appreciate the figures, and just the sculpts and poses that Chara-Ani does, I think are just killer. On the flip side, Chara-Ani is kind of known for their subpar quality. Their paint jobs aren't always that great, and they often don't quite look like the prototypes when they come, especially the faces on the figures, I've heard. And even my holo is a little bit less nice, I think, than the prototype looked, but it's alright. My other gripe with Chara-Ani is I don't think their quality at all meets the quality of Alter and Myethos. Their prices are so high, even higher than companies like Myethos and Alter. So I don't really know where Chara-Ani gets their pricing from, but I honestly think their figures are always way too overpriced. Alright, continuing on, we have a figure company that I don't have any figures from yet, but I will be getting one very soon. We have Freeing. So I know Freeing is a favorite from a lot of people due to their bunny figure line. So I guess as a pro for Freeing, they have their 1/4 scale line. Most of their 1/4 scales are bunnies, but they do make a few other 1/4 scales of characters. Their bunny figures are super popular and just super cool and nice quality. I do really like the bunny figures, and there are quite a few that I would like to add to my collection once I have a little bit more disposable income. Some cons of Freeing, though, are that they really only make bunny figures now. They have a few scales here and there, but for the most part, they've put all of their eggs in the bunny figure basket. Additionally, I think that they keep raising their prices on bunny figures, and they just get progressively more expensive with every release. And it's starting to feel a little bit like a money grab. Additionally, I'm not really a huge fan of the bare-legged bunnies. I'm gonna do a Gwen's hot anime figure take here and say that no one really wants the bare-legged bunnies. Everyone wants the ones with stockings. But the only reason the bare-legged ones are selling is because the stockinged ones are super expensive on the aftermarket. So an example of this is like the Aqua and Megumin that they re-released, the bare-legged version. I guarantee you, if they would have released the bare-legged version and the tights version, nobody would be buying the bare-legged version because the tights are just better. And like the price difference really, there is basically no price difference, I believe, between the bare-legged and the tights. So there's only like 2 bare-legged ones that I've seen that I actually preferred. And that was the, I think it's Gibril. I haven't watched No Game No Life, but I think it's the Gibril bunny figure. I actually think the tightsless one looks better than the one with tights. And I also really like the Momo bunny. Next up, we have a bit more of a wallet-friendly company, Taito, or Taito. The Taito prize figures are super nice, and I think Taito makes maybe a few more, like, a little bit more pricey. I know there's a Sakura Miku coming out that looks really nice. I think it's like in collab with a different manufacturer, but Taito for the most part makes their prize figures, and in my opinion, I think they make the best prize figures out of any company, especially their like seasonal Miku line. I think they just look, mwah, they look fantastic. So I would highly recommend Taito if you're looking for some really nice prize figures on a budget. Alright, next up we have a fun one. I don't own any figures from this company, but I thought I would add them in here just as kind of a warning, because I don't think I've ever heard a good story about a FOTS Japan figure. So if you don't know what FOTS Japan is, FOTS Japan, I'm not really sure if you can like say it as like a word or not, but we'll call it FOTS here. FOTS is an interesting company. They use a different material for their figure. I think it's called PVCL. I can't quite remember. I'll put it on the screen, but they use a much more brittle material for their figures. And then on top of that, they also package their figures very interestingly, often wrapping them in bubble wrap instead of using a bubble packaging. Anyway, this combination of poor material choice and poor packing leads to many, 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 many broken figures. So many, in fact, that if you search FOTS on like the anime figure subreddit or something, all you get are just picture after picture of broken figures or leaning figures or literally anything. It's pretty much just always a horror story, it seems, with that company. It's gotten so bad that Solaris Japan literally says, if your FOTS figure comes broken, that's your problem. Like, if even Solaris Japan just knows, like, this ain't it. I don't think AmiAmi even sells FOTS figures anymore because they're that bad. So if you're interested in getting a FOTS figure, which I know if you're a fan of Miss Kobayashi's Dragon Maid, you may want one, I would highly, highly caution against buying a figure from FOTS. There's literally no pros, but there are many, many cons. The other thing is these figures break all the time, and most of the time in transit before you even open them up. And they are horrifically overpriced. Like, some of these figures are over $200 and they come broken. Like, it's actually absurd. I don't know how this company has stayed afloat this long making figures this poor quality, but yeah, do not buy FOTS. Just don't even consider it. The last manufacturer I wanted to talk about is Union Creative. So from my experience, my limited experience with my Misato figure from Union Creative, I've been really happy with the figures that I've gotten. I really, really like Misato. I feel like her paint job is beautiful. The sculpt is really nice. I just think a lot of their figures, especially the prototypes, look really, really good. But from what I've heard online, it can be kind of a toss-up with Union Creative. Sometimes their figures come out really, really nice. For example, their Trick or Miku is a really, really cool figure. But a lot of the time their figures can come out not quite looking like the prototype, to the extent that people aren't really happy with them. So Union Creative is kind of one of those companies where you take a gamble Alright, so that is my experience and knowledge about a lot of the figure manufacturers. I know there's a ton more, like Aquamarine, which is now I think out of business, Furyu, a lot of other ones. I know I didn't talk about everything, but hopefully I covered the bases on some of the more basic figure manufacturers, and you'll all be able to kind of take something away from this video that will help you inform your choices moving forward. I know coming into this hobby, there's a lot of information, and sometimes it can be hard to decide, especially with scale figures when you're throwing around quite a bit of money. It's always good to make informed decisions on your figures, and I wish you all the best with your ordering figures, and I hope that this video has inspired you to maybe branch out and try some other companies, or maybe you'll stick to your favorites. Let me know if you agree with what I said in this video, or if you have anything to add. I'm always learning, and I always want to learn a little bit more about the hobby. So if you have any experience with any of these manufacturers, or if you disagree or agree with anything I said, please let me know in the comments, and I will be looking forward to reading all of your figure tips. Alright, I hope this video wasn't too long. I know I can ramble on, so I'll hopefully condense it when I'm editing, but thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you all very soon. Bye!